Yes, I know the 2026 draft is over. You don't need to tell me down in the comments, but I still need to rank all these prospects. And today we're going to knock out the halfbacks on our list. Let's jump into our top eight. Coming in here at number eight is going to be Nicholas Singleton, the running back out of Penn State. You know, he got hurt in the pre draft process, and that did limit him a little bit. But the problems with him, he couldn't really have fixed at the combine or running. Like, he's a good athlete. We can all tell that on tape. His issues, honestly, what it comes down to is he's not very shifty, he looks a bit stiff, and he has terrible vision. So I just don't think he really could have fixed that working out at the combine. He might have been able to build a little bit more hype and work his way up. But for me, I watched eight backs. He comes in at number eight. He had a 63 grade, which is a fifth round grade. Maybe a little bit higher than he ended up being taken. Or, I mean, definitely a little bit higher than he ended up being taken. I was hoping his vision would improve this year, and it feels like it got worse. He had a really bad year, and he wasn't able to break off the big plays that he was known for his junior year, and that made his senior tape just look really, really bad, in my opinion. You factor in the injury as well. Yeah, I think Tennessee took him at the right spot here. He's going to be number eight on this list. If you want to read the whole write up on him, here's the thing: I'm not going to read my report, and we're not going to talk super in depth, especially how late in the process. A lot of people already know who these guys are. I just want to rank them, give them my grades. That way you can see where I stand on them, and we can look back in a few years and see how I did with this class. But if you want to check out my full report, read everything I have on them, head over to www.jdfdraft.com. It's completely free. You can look at my draft guide. You can see each position ranking that I have completed, and every position ranking's up there, but I'm going through and doing final reports. I've already watched most of the players I'm going to grade, or a good amount of the players I'm going to grade throughout the course of the season. Before I quit YouTube, I'd had grades on some of these guys. So I'm just going through and rewatching and getting kind of back in tune with them, making sure I agree and making sure I hit a certain number. Like, I like to have usually four tapes on a guy. So if I watch two previous, I'm trying to watch two new tapes and then do my final grade on these guys and rewatch maybe one of the games, depending upon how I feel and if they're pretty similar after watching the two new games. Like I said, if you want to read the full reports, www.jdfdraft.com. It'll be down in the description. And we're going to move on to number seven, and that's going to be Jonah Coleman, the halfback from Washington. I was very high on Jonah Coleman coming into this year, and I really thought he was going to continue to ascend and break out. I didn't really see a first round back because he didn't have the elite size, didn't have elite speed. And this year, honestly, he disappointed me a lot. I had a really hard time dropping him as low as I did, but I ended up giving him a 64 grade, which actually makes him like a fourth to fifth round, and technically it's a fifth round grade. I just think that he lost all the burst in his body this year, and to be honest with you, he looked like he had nothing more to give athleticism wise, and he couldn't hit the holes when he seen him. Like, he still has good vision. I still think he's good in pass pro. I still think he's a pretty good receiving back out of the backfield, and I still think he runs low. I do think he just kind of didn't run as hard. He didn't break as many tackles. He definitely still didn't have the long speed, but we already knew that. And I just felt like the burst in his body was gone this year. And yeah, it really hurt me because I had a second round grade on him, like a borderline, like a top 50 grade coming into the season. I really like Jonah Coleman. The first two games against smaller competition, I was like, oh yeah, here we go. He's going to continue. And he's going to end up being this guy. And then it just all fell apart. As I watched the big games for him on the year, I just was not impressed with what I seen. And I had to really drop his grade. And except the fact that, in all honesty, he's just probably a role player, and I put it in my report. He kind of reminded me of Kyle Monangai last year, but he also reminds me of Samaj P. Ryan, where I think he'll be able to give you some pass, like some reps on third down. Just, be a shorter yards per carry type of back in the NFL, but you'll be able to give him a few carries, but mostly a third down threat, a few catches, a lot of pass blocking reps, and I kind of feel like that's what he could be going forward. So let's move on here. Number six on our list, it's going to be Kalen Black, the running back out of Indiana. And to be honest with you, I was a little bit higher on him than I think a lot of people with my final grade. But even before that, I was shocked he didn't get invited to the combine. Like, prior to my rewatch, I had him at a 64, the same as Jonah Coleman. And then I did my rewatch and I did raise it a little bit because of his athleticism and stuff. Like, he definitely looked like he lacked the long speed, and then he tested at the 40 and he had long speed. So I don't really know, like, that's a discrepancy. But when you're watching on tape, he got sniped down at times. He doesn't have great size despite being a physical runner. You do have to worry about how that's going to play in the long term. And doesn't have like the contact balance of Cam Scatterbu, where I was much higher on Cam Scatterbu last year. But I think Kalen Black's going to be a good back. I do think he got overdrafted, though. I gave him a 65.5 grade, which is a fourth to fifth round grade, but technically at the bottom of the fourth round. If you want the full report again, go check it out. But he is an older prospect. He's a physical runner. He finishes runs. He fights for every yard. He just doesn't have patience. He hits the hole at 100 miles an hour. And if it's not there, it's not there. He lowers his head and he turns his legs and tries to get what he can get. But hopefully he can develop a little bit of that. And he's always been a role player in college. And that is something that I think in the NFL, he will likely just be a role player, but I think he could be a good role player. The fourth round for me is kind of like where you start to describe like the guys who maybe could be starters, but are likely going to be role players are fourth round for me. Like if I have you in the fifth and lower, I don't really expect you to become a starter in the league. I'm just going to be honest about that. Of course it can happen in certain cases, but I don't feel that he's going to likely be a number one back for you, but I think he's going to be a really good complementary back. He still got overdrafted because I have a fourth to fifth round grade on him, but I was a little higher than some who thought the pick was absolutely terrible. But I'll be honest with you, if you wanted a physical runner who can give you a little bit of on third downs, has a little bit more size and experience, I would have probably went with Katron Allen, who comes in at number 5 on this list. He's also a year younger than Kalen Black, and I have a 67 grade on him, which is a solid fourth round grade. He's not a great athlete. We're going to lead with that. I know that, but he's a physical runner who has good pass pro. I know it wasn't a ton of reps, but he looked pretty good when he was out there. And I think he runs with good tempo. He finishes his runs. And, you just have to know what he is. He's not going to be an explosive athlete. He's going to be a good, solid number 2 role player for you. Again, maybe he could be a starter, but it would still be a starter in a rotation where you could have him be your lead back and he's your power back, but you have that slasher with him. I could see that happening with Katron Allen. Like I said, 67 grades, a solid fourth round grade. To be honest with you, I didn't expect coming into the year that Katron Allen would end up being ahead of Nicholas Singleton. The athleticism of Singleton and really hoping his vision would improve kind of drove me to always keep him ahead of Katron Allen. But Penn State finally realized it this year. And I think the whole draft community, after watching the tape and stuff, realized at the end of the day, Nicholas Singleton is just not. He's an athletic freak, but he just doesn't have the vision. And Katron Allen is actually a better true running back. He didn't catch the ball a lot. That's another thing that I don't know if he couldn't or just the fact that Singleton was a little better at it, because I do think that's something he did better. Kind of limited here. His role as a receiver, I don't think you'll see him do a ton of that, but he did do good in the pass pro reps. So maybe he can offer you some third down value. Either way, let's move on. We're going to hit number 4 on our list, and it's going to be Emmett Johnson, the running back out of Nebraska. He is a quick runner who isn't very fast. Like, he doesn't have the long speed. He doesn't have great size. He is a very good receiver out of the backfield, though. I think he could be a good third down option for you. And I think that's kind of going to be his future. He can get a little greedy at times. Like, he'll run up the middle, but he likes to get it to the outside if he can. He runs kind of high, which with his smaller stature is not great. And I know upright runners like Derrick Henry can work out. He just doesn't have the build and the natural physicality to be able to make that work as well. And I'd like to see him kind of get his pad level down when he runs a little bit. He just doesn't have that great size, only 5'10", 202. He doesn't have the great 40, which I didn't expect that. He doesn't really have great long speed. And I do think his pass protection, as good as he was as a receiver, his pass protection was pretty inconsistent in my eyes. I did like his vision, though. I thought he was able to find the holes when they were there, and he was able to bounce and cut and get to them. So Emmett Johnson ended up with a 68 grade, which is a third round grade, but I do think he's probably a role player who could potentially start for you, but most likely he's just going to be a role player. But I think he could be a really good role player for you in the NFL. Again, if you guys want to see the full reports on these players, go check out www.jdfdraft.com. That will give you my full report, my pros, my cons, and you're going to be able to see my big board and how I have them ranked right now. Overall, with all the players I've watched, I'm super far behind this year. I know the draft already happened, but we're still finishing this class before we get into summer scouting, and you'll get the first look at all the players on summer scouting as well, because it will go live on the website before I put it up on YouTube. So guys, if you want to keep up to date, go check it out. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I truly appreciate it. Next year's draft class will happen on schedule and on time. Everything will be up to date. We'll be doing more mock drafts. I quit YouTube last year and I was really kind of leaning towards quitting in December. So things got real inconsistent until I did finally quit for like 5 months. And as the draft got close, I realized I screwed up and I needed to watch the prospects because I just love doing it. There's a ton of knowledge and a ton of information to be gained by watching these guys prior to them going to the NFL. And it really helps you be excited going into the season, and just knowing the player and knowing like what they need to be better at. So either way, let's move on back to our list here. Number 3 is Mike Washington Jr., the Arkansas running back. He's 6'1", 223 with 4.33 speed. He is a fantastic athlete and he has great size. The only problem I really have with him, I love his long speed. I think he's a great, he has good vision. I think his acceleration's actually really good. He is a little tight, but he does have good foot speed in the hole to be able to make that cut. He's more of probably an outside, like a zone runner, in my opinion, I think would be where he's best. I just am disappointed with the fact that he has highlight power runs where he runs people over, but he doesn't consistently do that. I think far too often, even though he drops his pads pretty well when he is running up the middle, when he gets near contact, sometimes he stays a little high. Again, he's a bit of an upright runner and he stops his feet on contact, and that saps all of his power. And I feel like I just seen that far too often with him, but I think he's going to be able to offer you something as a receiver out of the backfield, like in check down situations. He did do that a little bit and he did have some drops, but I think he was okay overall in that regard, like his screens and just being able to be out there if he can clean up his pass protection, because his pass protection is really bad, in my opinion. He didn't have a great anchor. He didn't latch on to guys. Like blitzers would come in, he'd kind of shock them and they would just go around him. He didn't hold on, direct them. He would miss guys. He would be late with his eyes figuring out who to block. Like he has a long way to go in pass protection. And to be honest with you, that right there is what really drops my grade on him a lot, because I'm just not sure if he's going to be playable on third down for a while. And I think he could be a starter in this league, but he will only be a 2-down player if he can't get that pass protection under control. All right, so we lost power partway through recording this episode. So I'm back here and just finishing my thoughts on Mike Washington. He ended up for me being a 70 grade, which is technically the bottom of the third round. So around 3 to 4 talent. I do have some questions about him, but he is probably the one player outside of the top 2 that I think really could develop into a starter in the NFL. I do think he'd probably still be a part of a rotation, at least for a few years, because that pass protection's pretty bad and he needs to keep his feet chugging. He has the highlight power moments, but like I said, at times it doesn't show up consistently because he'll stop his feet on contact and go down. And he does fall forward. I'll give him credit for that as well. But if you want the full report, go check it out. Moving on here. Number 2 on our list is going to be Jadarian Price, the running back out of Notre Dame. 5'10", 203. He was the number 2 back in Notre Dame, but, he was behind a fantastic player who's number 1 on this list. So nothing to be worried about there. He doesn't have the ideal size, though. His 40 time 4.49 is not bad, but honestly, he looks faster than that on tape. And I think a lot of that's because he has really good instincts and feel in the open field and he has good vision. I do think sometimes on inside runs that vision can be a little inconsistent, but you get him outside, you get him to the edges, and I think, dude, he's gonna see the field well. He's gonna have quick feet, cut back, find the lanes. He uses it on special teams where he's also going to be a big contributor. He was a fantastic kick returner for you, and it shows up when he has the ball in his hands, and I think that's how he was able to have so many explosive plays. He has great acceleration as well, and I really think he's faster the whole. Sometimes he does need to tempo it just a little bit more. He can get a little too quick. I like Jadarian Price. I ended up giving him a 76 because the size, and I'm a little concerned that he gets a little bounce heavy at times. Like he likes to get the runs outside. He's going to have to clean. That doesn't play in the NFL. And especially with his speed, he doesn't have elite enough speed to be able to do that in the NFL and make defenses pay for it. It's going to end up being a loss or a negative play. And we've seen a lot of players who had that struggle be held back in the NFL. So I have some concerns there, which is how he ended up at a 76, which is a second to third round grade. Technically, it's in the second round, just outside of the top 50, because a 77 is a top 50. So he's just outside of the top 50 for me. I don't think he's going to add a ton of value as a receiver, but the thing is, that is a bit unknown. They had Jeremiah Love, so they didn't utilize him in that way. So he could actually be very good in that regard. And he did show some flashes. He just didn't do it a whole lot. So it's really unknown with him. And it's a lot of projecting whether he'll be able to do that or not. He does look a bit stiff to me. He's not very shifty. He's more of a one cut type guy, and his quick feet is what he relies upon, not actual wiggle in the open field. And he doesn't show a ton of power, but that's expected at his size. I think he could be a lead back in the NFL. I do think he can start. I don't know that I would have taken him where the Seahawks took him, though. I'll be honest on that. I understand that he was maybe the only back that they felt comfortable getting reps too early and being a starter after Love, and they didn't have any shot at getting him. So I get why they did the process, but that'll go into the draft grades later. Overall, I think Jadarian Price is a pretty good player. Like I said, just outside of the top 50 for me. He has a lot of upside, but I do think some of his skills may not translate the best to the NFL. So I have some concerns, but the big play upside, the vision in the open field, the special teams value are all things to be happy about if you're Seattle. Moving on, though, number one on our list is the guy that's been number one all along, and that's Jeremiah Love, the running back out of Notre Dame. 6 foot, 212 pounds, has the ideal size speed combination that you're looking for. He's 21 years old. He's my top player right now on my big board. And I have yet to finish my rewatch on Caleb Downs. However, with where it stands right now with my grade on Caleb Downs in season, where I've watched 4 of his tapes and I'm going to watch at least one additional one I haven't watched yet for the playoffs. Also, rewatch some of the other ones. I think Jeremiah Love's going to end up being number one for me, probably. And he has a 94.5 grade. He's easily the best running back in this class. He has elite speed. Twitch and change of direction are incredible. He has good vision, natural hands. He can run routes. He can honestly, he could end up doing a little bit of the Christian McCaffrey stuff and lining up out and slot, like the slot receiver position, and running some routes. I don't think he's as good as McCaffrey at that, but I think he can do that. He has excellent contact balance. He always fights and falls forward. He has great acceleration. He runs low to the ground through the hole. Now, on occasion, his pacing could use a little bit more work. He's a bit impatient at times. He will outrun blockers sometimes. That's something he's a little bit young. It'll get better, I'm sure, with time. Honestly, he's just a dynamic player who makes all the sense in the world here to be the top back. And the real interesting question with him is where would he have ranked against Ashton Jeanty last year? Jeanty for me would have been a 94. My grading scale was different last year, but I converted everybody in last year's class to the current grading scale before I started doing this because I wanted to be able to compare prospects and match it up. I would have given Ashton Jeanty a 94 last year. I gave Jeremiah Love a 94.5. I think it was a 94. Actually, let me verify that real quick because I'm second guessing myself. Sorry, computer's loading a bit slow here. Yeah, Jeanty was a 94. I was right on that. But Jeremiah Love just ahead of him. A lot of it had to do with the competition level. Like Jeanty has better contact balance and he pinballed a lot, but he didn't have ideal size, didn't have the long speed of Love, and he didn't play the consistent level of competition that Jeremiah Love did, which, I mean, he showed up. The Texas A&M game to begin the year was a slow one, or not A&M. They played Miami week 1, sorry. Was a slow game, but after that, he took off and was hot. I'm all in on Jeremiah Love as the top back. I think he's a fantastic player. He ended up going at number 3 overall. I would have been comfortable with him going top 5, especially in this class, since he's the best player in the draft to me. And with my final big board stuff, like right now, I don't currently take into account positional value. I may release 2 big boards next year, one where the grades are and one where I factor in positional value. That's to be decided for the future, but I'm not doing it for this class. Jeremiah Love's going to be my number 1 overall prospect. And that's it for the running back rankings. This is a shorter list. I only ended up watching 8 guys. To be honest with you, this wasn't a great class. And I wouldn't have been surprised had 2 guys only gone on day 1 and 2 of the draft, because a lot of the guys after the top 2 backs, like I said, Mike Washington, I liked enough to say I probably would have taken him inside of the top 100 at the back half, like the back half of the 3rd round. But everybody else, man, I just didn't see a 3rd round talent. And I'm surprised Kalen Black got there, but this just wasn't a great running backs class. Last year was a lot better, and I think next year's class has the potential to be better. So just kind of an in-between class that just lacked a lot of talent. So if you guys liked what you saw, please consider liking the video. If you disliked it, tell me why down in the comments, and I'll have a discussion with you. But I want to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Have a great day. I'll catch you in the next video. I believe this one will be out before I do the edge rushers. It could end up being after edge rushers, but I'm recording it, and then I'm recording them right as I finish the positions. It's just the order I release them depends upon, how I get them all scouted and how it all works out, because I'm aiming for 1 a week and maybe 2 a week here or there to try to get these done in June. So we'll have to see, but I want to make sure I have consistent content, so I'm not throwing this video out. I finished it, I think, 2 days after I released the cornerback rankings. I'm recording this, so they could end up being a later release just because I want to save one so that way if I get behind, I have a video to come out to you guys. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Remember, check out www.jdfdraft.com, and I'll catch you in the next one. I'm out.